Buckle up.
Because it's going to be a long ride.
It's going to be a wild ride.
No one cares, but we're going to tell you anyways.
This is Popcorn Chats.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm Michae.
And I'm Katie.
And this week, we have a brand spanking new movie once again. We just did I'm Pregnant the other week. I don't even remember what week we did.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. And now we are bringing you Antebellum.
Yeah, hopefully you guys watched. Obviously, major spoilies ahead. So if you haven't watched the new film Antebellum yet, then maybe click off. I also just wanted to say before we start, immediate disclaimer, Michaela and I are two white girlies talking about a film that addresses race and slavery. Obviously, we should not necessarily be the only people that you listen to about this subject. There are a ton of other Black film reviewers that I'm going to link in the description below. But two really good ones right off the bat are Sharonda Williams. Her show's called Pay Your Way, and you can watch her on YouTube. She has a really good review about Antebellum. And another Black film reviewer, Brandon Keith Avery. He has a film review show on YouTube called Just My Opinion, and they both have episodes on Antebellum. So I would suggest watching those maybe before you listen to us, or just in addition to listening to us. Obviously, we appreciate your support and everything, but we need to be amplifying Black voices. I think Michaela and I are just more wanting to have a conversation, because these are conversations that white people especially need to have about how are we going to address this issue and fix it, because racism is our problem, not Black people's. They also do spoiler-free reviews, so if you haven't seen the movie, maybe they'd be better for you to listen to right now or watch.
Yeah, because we're going to spoil things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Katie brings up a great point. I think that while we like talking about movies like this and Get Out and Us, because Katie and I really enjoy these kind of psychologically twisty movies, and the discourse on social justice and these issues in our country, while we really enjoy that, we also are not the two people that you should be really be taking everything that we're saying as the word in this conversation, because we cannot view this through a lens of a Black American or a Black person in this country. So please make sure that you are doing that. And I think for Katie and I, we a lot of the times have conversations between the two of us just trying to learn as much as we can and kind of keep each other accountable. So it's nice that we then have this space to do that as well, on top of our conversations that we do off the podcast. But yes, please be checking out Black creators and Black voices, and not taking the word of us two white girls as the end-all be-all on this movie.
Right. And I think we're not trying to say, just because you're white, you should shut up and be quiet. Like I said before, we need to be having these conversations. But in a respectful way, like Michaela said, we can't speak for Black people and their experience. So we might make mistakes and, call us out, but do it respectfully, I guess. We're just trying to have a conversation, a productive conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
And now we can move into this new movie, the first movie that Michaela and I watched together in a really long time for the podcast. I don't remember the last one that we sat. I'm just remembering going to see Star Wars in the theaters.
I'm trying to think. What would have been the last movie that we would have watched together for the pod?
I don't know. We haven't done it that often. We normally just watch things separately.
On our own. We only ever really watched scary movies together, honestly. I don't know. It has been a long time since we have.
It was great too. Watching. I don't know how you felt about it, but just us trying to figure it out together. Like Michaela said, we love these types of movies with symbolism and a twist and trying to figure that stuff out. So.
Yeah, and then I was constantly jumping off of my bed to go and pause my laptop to be like, Katie, did you just see that? And she was like, no. Be like, look at the phone, look at the phone.
I think I'm probably the most annoying person to watch movies with. My boyfriend Jack can definitely attest to this because I'm either super intensely critical and annoying to watch. We watched 51st Dates the other night, and I hate Adam Sandler with a burning, fiery passion. And so I was just shitting on it the entire time, and he was like, can we please just watch the movie?
I was just gonna tell you, he IM'd me yesterday and was like, I just watched 50 First Dates with Katie the other night, and she spent the entire time complaining about Adam Sandler. I was like, I forgot that Katie has beef with Adam Sandler.
That movie is problematic to me, but that's a different episode. Yeah, or I just am not paying attention, and Michaela will be like, did you see that? I was like, no.
Okay, so there's this one moment in this movie that I just want to bring up here. So Veronica, at one point, you see her at the beginning of the movie, like really taking these giant steps in her cabin on the squeaky floor, and then when she would squeak, she would scrunch her face up and be like, oh. So I just assumed that Katie realized that that was her trying to like get past the squeaks.
No.
But then at the end of the movie, when she's doing that, Katie's like, oh, that's what she's been doing this whole time. It's like, Katie,
I didn't realize. I told you. I'm 10 seconds behind, or 10 minutes. Yeah, that was bad. I was like, oh! And you had literally just said, like, that's why she's been practicing. And then literally 5 minutes later, I'm like, that's why she was practicing.
Yeah, Katie.
This will make no sense if you haven't seen the movie, but
I would hope you have, because
yeah.
I mean, if you don't mind being spoiled, please proceed. But I do think this is a really good one to not know the twist. I can't help but compare it to Get Out and Us, even though it's not a Jordan Peele film. I think it kind of has similar themes as the other two, and they are by the same producers. Us especially, I think if you know the twist, that's almost better watching it. Like, I feel like that's better on the rewatch. Get Out, I wouldn't have wanted to be spoiled by, but this one, genuinely, I don't really think watching it you would miss much. Do you get what I'm saying here? Like, if you're spoiled on this one, I really think that it's not necessarily going to like enhance your viewing experience knowing this ahead of time.
This film differs from Get Out and Us in the amount of like black pain and torture there is in this film. So if you are like really sensitive to that, I could see you not wanting to see this movie, and I will just warn you now that there's a lot of that, and we're gonna talk
especially
about that
right
a
off
little
the
bit.
bat.
Right off the bat, it starts really getting into the gruesome and horrible and traumatic reality of slavery. So that it's pretty much the first hour of the film. We're seeing people get killed, get abused, beaten, raped. It's just really awful. Yep, shot. It's horrible. It's a film about slavery and racism and white supremacy. So just another disclaimer, I guess, if you haven't seen the film, I could understand you not wanting to see it for that reason. We didn't do our check-in. How are you?
It's good. I'm fine. It's been like a pretty average week, I guess.
You're blowing up on TikTok. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. If you guys don't follow me on TikTok, you can go follow me on TikTok. Only if you really care about seeing art. I'm not
It's cool
doing the like trends or dances or anything. But yeah, so I just finished, as I think I talked about on a last episode, I just finished this 8-book series, the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and I already have had these canvases that I've made for years. Like book and TV show quote inspired canvases that I make. And then I recently decided with quarantine, I never had any book ones, but it was mostly because there was always like new movies and new TV shows, and now there hasn't really been a lot, and I've been wanting to paint. So I started painting like book inspired ones, and I started posting them, and yeah, one that I posted blew up kind of for me. I don't know, like other people are probably like, that's not that high. It like definitely blew up for my following that I had on there. It's been cool. Now I'm like, crap, I better get painting because I have 6 other books to get through to paint. So I'm planning on doing that this weekend and trying to get some more.
And you
And I
started
posted my
your
first 2
yeah.
YouTube reading vlogs. I vlogged the whole time that I read the Throne of Glass series. So if you are a fan of that and interested in coming along on that, please go check those out. I don't know what I'm going to do with the YouTube channel. I think I'm going to try to maybe post like a video a week, but we'll see. I think it just is going to kind of depend on what kind of reading material I'm doing and if it like warrants a video or not.
Mhm.
So I'll be posting like a wrap up video of everything that I read though every month. Like I know that for sure. So I'll have that up next week sometime. So if you guys like reading, check it out.
Yeah, I feel like you're so natural in front of the camera and just like your passion for the books and like your excitement about them really like shines through. So they're super fun to
Thank you.
watch. We'll link that
Thank
channel
you.
info in the description below, and hopefully our Popcorn Chats YouTube channel will be coming out soon as well, now that I have a brand new computer to finally get editing on.
Yeah. So Katie, I know your week is going good, at least because you got your computer in.
Yeah, everything has been kind of on the up and up since that arrived. And then I found out today that one of my short films made it into an international film festival. And I fell down the stairs because my legs were shaking when I found out. And I was walking downstairs because I woke up to a text message from the director of the film this morning. And I was like, oh my God. And then I fell. Which I felt like was so on brand. My dad was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was just tragic, but that was exciting news.
That is so
Maybe
exciting though. When I saw that on your story, I like was just so excited for you.
I know. I can't believe it. It's really exciting. I wish that it wasn't virtual because it's in Ireland. So I could be going to Ireland if it was not freaking virtual this year, but that's
How
fine. I'm
tragic.
still I know it could have been a great time, but so yeah, that's
We
just
do have
exciting.
listeners in Ireland, so maybe one of these days, years from now,
Yeah.
we would have enough of a fan base we could go there for a visit.
Yeah, maybe we'll go on like a tour there or something. I think it's a good week for the girlies once again.
It has been a good week for the girlies. I feel like we go back and forth. We're either both having like a good week or we're both having a really bad
We
week.
really do. It's funny how that works. I hope that we keep this
Yeah.
momentum. I don't need any more bad things. When I told my parents about the film thing, they were like, "You really needed that." And I was like, "I really did." Maybe it's just because I complain too much, but I just feel like I have been getting kicked when I'm already down like so much, and I'm so blessed and so lucky. So I feel bad complaining about it, but it's just kind of been a string of like bad luck. I don't know who I
Mm.
pissed off, Mercury in retrograde or whatever. I think I accidentally do things to like piss off the universe and I don't realize it. Uh,
Oh shoot.
let's.
Yeah.
Let,
Unfortunately.
it's just me. Do you want to kick us off with standout star?
Yeah, and I wonder if you have the same one. Is it gonna be Veronica?
Mine is not Veronica.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say we could just popcorn back and forth then. Yeah, my standout star is Veronica. I just think that Janelle Monáe is so insanely talented, and I feel like different roles that I've seen her in, she hasn't really been able to like. She's done a great performance, but it hasn't
Mm-hmm.
tapped into all of her potential. Where I feel
Mm-hmm.
like this role, granted she didn't get to sing in it, which is
Yeah.
a tragedy, but this isn't that kind of the movie. But this performance in this role demanded so much of her, and I absolutely loved every minute that Veronica was on the screen. She had the perfect amount of like poise and resilience in the situations that called for it. And she also had the perfect amount of like fire and rebellion in her at other moments. Like it was such a balance at times because when she's on the plantation, she can't be showing that inner defiance to
Mm-hmm.
people. So you do see her much more just stoic. But then by the end of the movie, she really gets to bring that fire out. And I just thought it was really a really great performance on her end. I think she carried the movie very well. Because while there are other people people in it, obviously, that play a large role. Hers is the one that you're following the whole time, and I enjoyed following her story the whole time.
I agree. I enjoyed her performance for the most part. I feel like we've never really gotten to see Janelle Monáe in a leading role, so it was cool to see her as like the front runner of a film. And I loved her. She just obviously she always looks stunning, but I felt like her costuming in the like parts of the film that took place in the present day were phenomenal. Like she just looked so vibrant and it fit her character so well, this like professional, really successful book author. I just think the
Yeah.
costume designer of this film blew it out of the water. So
Her red jumpsuit when we
Yep.
first see her, that kind of first morning of In Present Day, and with her like sleeked hair, but then it all like poofed out behind her. Like so stunning. Her whole family, honorable mention for the family. That is that is the most aesthetically appealing family I've ever seen in my whole life. They all are so beautiful. Their house,
Yeah.
beautiful. Their interactions, so pure. Like just
Yeah.
their whole family was so damn cute.
Yeah, such a cute family, just like successful.
Like everyone looks at that family and wants that family.
Yeah, like the
They want that
solid,
life.
loving relationship between mom and dad and this sweet little girl. Like they achieved the American dream. That was such an enjoyable thing to watch. Just like a normal day to day, like loving family. I didn't know how entertaining that could be to just watch.
That's so true though.
So you and I both were like, oh, like everything that happened, especially the husband, everything he said, we were like, oh, what a man.
Yeah.
My standout star was actually her friend Bridget, who's played by Gabourey Sidibe. I wish that she was in the film more. In the review that I was watching with Brandon Avery, he did say that he felt she was a little bit over sexualized, which I could see that, but I don't see an issue with a woman just like owning their sexuality and being a sexual being. However, I could see what he was talking about. It might have been a little bit overdone, and I think her character could have been more fleshed out. I really appreciated the moment when she like told off the waiter at the restaurant, like, you're trying to put us in a corner, I know what you're doing, we want to sit over there. And the waiter trying to be like,
and just moved, didn't even ask for permission,
was
just like, we're gonna sit here, and just made a statement of it.
Right, and just how she spoke her mind, how the waiter tried to sell them like the cheapest bottle of champagne, Prosecco, and she was like, no. I think it was her that said no, or it might have been Veronica. I can't remember. And then she like
we
told
buy
off
Prosecco,
dude.
Katie. You and I buy Prosecco.
Do.
Not
I know.
All these successful women.
When she got that free drink, I was like, I would have just taken it, but she was like, no, this is not good enough for me. Which like, go you. I just think we could have seen more of her character. I would have liked to see more of her character throughout the entire film. Not saying that I wanted her to be on the plantation too, but just I was really intrigued by her character and felt like her presence on screen was one of the most entertaining parts of the film. I just wanted to see more of her. So
her other friend's voice, Katie was like, she has a sexy voice. And Katie was so right. That woman should get into audiobooks, because I would listen to book after book that she narrated.
Yeah. I just liked their little friendship. I liked all of the present day stuff. I thought that that was really pleasing to watch. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just enjoyed watching Veronica's life.
And I think what makes it all the more impactful and enjoyable is that we see that after we get like an hour on the plantation.
True.
Because Katie and I said to each other, we're like, we are so ready to be out of here, because it's just so horrible to watch. There's no part of it that is enjoyable to watch what you're seeing. So by the time that she woke up in present day, we kind of both like exhaled a breath and we're like, oh, finally, okay, we're out of that. So then seeing this beautiful life that she's living, super successful woman at work, super successful woman at home, has a great group of friends here. It was so fun to watch and see that. And I don't know if maybe we would have appreciated that as much if we would have seen that before we saw all of the stuff on the plantation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Which is, I mean, I don't know. We really struggled during the first hour of the film. We were very uncomfortable. It's so upsetting. We both were just saying, like, how do we not talk about this more? Like, it's literally the Holocaust, like, in America. It's such a horrible, horrible part of our history, and we just don't talk about it enough as
Yeah.
Americans and as white people. In the grand scheme of things, slavery and white supremacy, first of all, white supremacy is still very alive in our society today, but slavery and this dehumanization of black people in this way, in the way of slavery, it didn't happen all that long ago. The film begins with the text, "The past is never dead," right? Is that what it says?
It's something along those lines. Yeah, I wish I would have noted that because I was trying to remember and then I couldn't find it because the movie was already gone on our Amazon account.
So we can get more into that stuff later and just kind of like what this film is trying to achieve. But yeah, definitely the first hour, we were both very tense, and I was just like, I'm not ready to watch a rape scene right now. Like, I just can't do that.
Not that everything needs like a trigger warning, but I do think that this movie it is just heavy and it is hard to watch. So I just would caution you that maybe if you are maybe not having the best day, this might not be the movie to like pop in at the end of the day, you know. It is very
Right.
heavy. Katie and I watched this a couple nights ago, so we had kind of yesterday to digest everything. And I don't know about you, Katie, but I really couldn't stop thinking about it. One, that night after you left, I really just thought about that the rest of the night. Even as I was reading, I would find myself like drifting back and thinking about the movie. And
Yeah.
even yesterday too, I was just trying to sit there, think about it all, and I was just like, holy shit, like that is it's just so messed up.
Yeah.
And like the fact that our country is in such disarray, it makes it all the worse, I guess. I don't think
Hmm.
that's grammatically correct, but
No, I think you're spot on. Yeah, I'm glad we kind of gave ourselves a day to like sit with what we just saw and everything, because this is a difficult movie to digest and wrap your head around, and it's just a touchy subject. Any film that is about slavery, it toes this line. And again, this is something that Sharonda Williams and Brandon Keith Avery talk about, and probably more articulately, and like they are able to view it in a black lens, so probably better than me. But it just toes the line of like showing black pain and torture for spectacle or for entertainment. Like there's nothing entertaining about that. And
mm-hmm.
obviously Mikhail and I, like we said, we really struggled with the first part of this movie. We're like, we just want this to be over.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's like a good reaction to have or not, but I think the points that they raised were like it should have a purpose. Showing this type of stuff should serve a purpose, whether it's to educate people, especially white people, about the atrocities of our past. It definitely forced Mikhail and I to confront this horrible reality that was the past. And then with the twist that happens in the film, it's like, oh, okay, the present as well. Obviously, we've been forced to confront that a lot recently this year, especially. So, yeah, it's complicated. Lots of emotions, lots of shame with our
Mm-hmm.
past and America in general. So,
And if you aren't ashamed, you
check
should
yourself.
read more and learn more because
Hmm.
yikes.
So, do you have a standout scene?
Yeah, it's not really too much. I don't really need to get into it too much. It's just the entire end montage, the slow motion running of her
Mm,
when she finally gets the horse and she's running away and she breaks outside of the plantation and then is in the Civil War reenactment area, the battlefield area, I guess. That shot is just so visually stunning. Slow motion, the shot there that's the continuous shot that they're doing, and then the music playing, just all of that coming together creates such a beautiful shot. I had like full body chills watching it.
mm-hmm,
It's really beautiful. And then when she was face to face with the Richard E. Lee statue on her horse at the end there, that shot too, that it's not necessarily a scene, it's just a moment there that is it was just such a powerful choice to do that they are both on their horses facing each other. I think I don't necessarily want to say that this is what their intention was. My interpretation of this was partially, why are these statues still around
mm-hmm,
for people in this country to be seen
mm-hmm,
worshiping people in our history that had slaves, fought against the rights of black people in our country, and that they are still around and that they still come face to face with them.
Yeah.
But then two, also equally powerful, that all the slave owners in this plantation in this land, that I think we got to get into the twist soon
Yeah.
so it's easier to explain, like it doesn't sound so weird. But all these dudes are in here riding their horses around, and that's like a symbol of power and a symbol of status, that then the statue is showing. But then we got Janelle Monae on her horse staring at him and being like, look now, look at how the times have changed. So you see that and you're like, wow, we've come far. And then you see the rest of the whole movie and you're like, we have not come that far.
Yeah, it's like just because black people can achieve success, and I feel like so often the opposing argument is like, this isn't an issue anymore. We had a black man as president. We have all these like famous black people. It's clearly possible for black people to gain success, and this black person is richer than me, and I'm a white person, so don't talk to me about white privilege and all this stuff. Although we have gotten to a certain point in society where black people are able to climb the ladder and achieve certain statuses and power and everything, and in that moment that you're talking about when Janelle Monae is an equestrian and like on the horse and everything, like staring down this statue of Robert E. Lee, it does kind of touch on that. We've evolved, but we really, in many ways, we are still exactly where we've always been. I don't know if I explained that well at all, but I agree. I feel like that was a super powerful symbolic like shot.
Yeah, I don't know if I articulated that how I wanted to. There are so many times that Katie and I on this podcast, after we stop recording, we're both like, "Ugh, I don't think I said that right, or that didn't come out the way that I wanted to." The struggle, I don't know if this is the same for Katie, but for me as a writer, like, I like being able to take the time to write down my thoughts and like go back and edit and make sure that it's coming across the way that I wanted to and kind of cut out any of the fluff. Where
Mhm.
on this, obviously, we don't have the ability to do that. So I
Mhm.
hope that that made sense, what we were trying to say about that shot. But I think
Mhm.
it shows the power that, I don't know if it's necessarily power, but I guess just in certain ways how society has evolved, and that Veronica has this opportunity to have been an equestrian for many years now, where if this would have been in the time that the movie was showing and like going back and reenacting, she wouldn't have been able to.
Mhm.
But yet there's still the reminders now of where that started
Mhm.
every day around certain areas, like with these statues.
Yeah, just because black people have persevered and survived through all of these atrocities and gotten to the point where they, in certain instances and cases, do have the ability to overcome white privilege and things that are working against them in our society today, just because there are specific examples of people who have been able to overcome that now, that doesn't negate from the fact that white supremacy and the effects of slavery have carried over into our present day today, and the lingering effects of this horrible, horrible period in our history are still prevalent and still working against the majority of black people. Yeah, I'll just say quick. There's a really cool one shot at the beginning that kind of introduces the setting and where we are. It's beautiful. The whole film is really well done visually. I think the shots are just beautiful, especially the one you were talking about too at the end where she's running in slow motion and just like the expression on her face is so clear and sharp and vivid. And yeah, but I also thought the one shot at the beginning was super cool and visually pleasing, and then also the moment at the end when Veronica puts all the slavers into the shed and burns them all. I like how she tricks them into thinking, because they talk about like loyalty. They want the slaves to be loyal to them. And she tricks them into thinking that she's loyal and being like, oh, Master so and so is hurt. And so they all go in there and then she traps them. I just thought that was so badass. And she burns them and carries this torch away. Like, ugh, it's such a powerful and awesome image. And we were both just like, yes, girl, yes.
Yeah, because she's got the torch like raised up,
Mhm.
walking away with it, and it looks very much like the fist
Yeah.
up and everything. Oh, it was just, it's a beautiful shot.
Yeah. Should we address the twist in the film?
Yeah, yeah, let's get into that. Okay, so we're watching the movie, and as Katie and I said, about the first hour is set on a plantation. And you are made to believe that this is current time
1860.
or back in history.
Yeah, 1860 when
And
slavery
then
was alive and well.
yes. And then we get a shot where Veronica wakes up. There is a phone alarm that goes off. And she wakes up from the bed in her cabin on the plantation. And then she wakes up in her bed at home in present day. So then, as we start seeing this unfolding, my initial guess was she's a time traveler. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why my mind immediately went to that, but I was thinking she was a time traveler. So we see her starting to move throughout her day, and then about 75% through the movie, Veronica gets kidnapped, and then we realize we get thrown back in her cabin in her bed, and a phone alarm goes off. And after that phone alarm went off, Katie and I were both like, but she's back at the plantation. Like, what? And then we realize that this general gets up out of her bed and goes out to his horse and pulls out an iPhone and answers it and is talking to someone on the phone and goes back into her room. So then we realize that this plantation is in present day. Everything
Mm-hmm.
that's happening is in present day. This slavery, this plantation that we have seen has never been taking place back in the 1800s, 1900s at all. Like, nope, this is current day here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everything we had been seeing up until that point was happening in, I mean, technically the year 2019, 2020, coronavirus aside. So I think we were just confused and we were waiting for things to add up and we just weren't necessarily sure what was going on. I think we definitely thought that they were time travelers. And earlier in the film, when it's on the plantation and we were thinking that it's like 1860s time period, a new woman arrives at the plantation and she's like, Veronica, I know you, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking about where they're from, and the woman says she's from North Carolina. And I was like, pretty sure that wasn't part of the 13 original colonies. So I was just like, where are we? And I think they're
Yeah.
time travelers. And then fast forward to when she gets kidnapped and we're back at the plantation again and the phone is going off and he answers the phone. I looked at Michaela, I was like, it's present day. It's present day. And we both were like, oh my God, what
Like,
the hell?
what the hell?
Yeah, it was a wild
It's crazy.
twist.
And I do just want to say, I just said like 18th century, 19th century. I don't want to sound like an idiot. It does say on the Wikipedia page 19th century. So.
Yeah, that's the 1800s. You good, dog.
I promise I'm not this stupid, guys. I promise I am not this stupid. Although Katie and I did have to Google where Colorado
We did. And then I was also like, wait, is North Carolina one of the 13 original colonies? No, right? I still don't know. Could have Googled it, but
I didn't bother Googling it.
I
But yeah, so anyway, so when part of the twist is, so when you're in this present day time, Katie and I were like hawk-eyed watching the movie, trying to find any symbols, anything. So a few things that you do notice in present day. So you do see, or technically it's all present day. Okay, so on the plantation at the beginning of the film, you see Veronica get branded. Absolutely horrible to watch. And then shortly after that, when we're stuck into like current time or before Veronica was kidnapped, she does like rub her lower back in the exact place that she was branded, and she kind of like lifts up her tank top a bit and you can see that she's not branded. So Katie and I were like, oh, that's when we were still kind of thinking like time travel. Obviously now that was just more like trying to throw you off, I think. And then there was the symbol that she was branded with, is then what Jenna Malone's character, that is her phone lock screen. She has it on like a little pin on her jacket.
And
Like
Jenna Malone is like the plantation owner's wife, basically. Yeah, and so we see her in what we think is the past on the plantation, and then she is also carried over into what we think is like the future, where we're following Veronica. and she's like trying to recruit her. Like she kind of comes off as a talent agent. And it's just
Yeah.
super sketchy and weird and clearly racist and annoying.
Very.
So yeah, she had the thing, and that was where I was behind because Mikhail was like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "No," but she did have the brand logo on her phone background.
The last kind of like two big things that we saw before realizing kind of what was going on was the little girl. So Jenna Malone and this plantation owner's husband, they have a daughter on the plantation who is so creepy. Katie
Mm-hmm.
has talked about this before, how she like really doesn't like little kids in movies, and this little girl is creepy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes in the elevator with Veronica, and Veronica's like, "Oh, hi, sweetie, where are you headed?" And the little girl tells her to shush and say do do do, and telling her not to speak, and then drags a doll by the neck on a string, like out of the elevator, which at the beginning of the film, you do see a woman get shot by one of the slave owners and then dragged by his horse back. So it's like copying that same movement, which seeing that, I was like, learned behaviors, like kids learn so
Yeah.
many behaviors from their parents or their guardians or the people around them that they're older and looking up to. And that was just such a great symbol of being like, it's getting passed down generation to generation. But
Right.
that's kind of the other little like tidbit that we get that's really tying it back and forth. And
Yeah.
then after we already know the twist with the one girl, Julia, she has a butterfly tattoo on her ankle that is the same butterfly that is on the cover of Veronica's book. So when
Mm.
Julia shows up at the plantation, like Katie said earlier, and she's like, "I know you, I recognize you," but we obviously don't know how they know each other. Then we later realized that she was probably a fan of Veronica's book and Veronica's work to have that
Yeah.
tattoo on her. And then Julia does end up killing herself by the end of the film.
Yeah, which was also really upsetting. So Veronica is targeted by these like weird ass slave owner present day people because she is a black activist and speaks out about like black female empowerment in particular and stuff. We see her giving this keynote speech in the like second half or the second act of the film. There were other clues too that Mikhail and I sort of picked up on, but we didn't necessarily connect the dots because the people on the plantation, which during the part where we were supposed to think it was the 1800s, they were kind of talking like present day people.
Using like present day dialect.
Yeah, like some of the stuff they were saying, we were just like, what? Just kind of confused. So once the twist happened, it all just kind of fell into place and made sense. And you do kind of start questioning, like, how would this type of thing ever happen? And then it's like, well, Civil War reenactments do happen. And I have questions for people who want to be on the Confederate side in those reenactments. Like we should be investigating those things and like really looking into them. Like why Michaela was asking, like, why do people feel the need to even reenact the Civil War? Like it's over, it's done. Like North wins because slavery's bad. Why do we need to revisit this,
I don't get that. I don't really get war reenactments in general. It's almost like romanticizing war.
Yeah.
When war is not good. We said that in our Hunger Games episode. It's like war is not good, guys. Like I don't get that. I get cosplay, and I know that a lot of people are really into that. And cool, if you want to cosplay as like your favorite Star Trek character and go to a convention, super cool. If you want to cosplay as a Confederate soldier and like go reenact that, I have questions. I guess I would just like to know where that desire comes from.
Yeah, so it's basically these Civil War reenactment people taking it to the extreme and actually holding slaves on this plantation in Georgia while they're reenacting the Civil War. It's just incredibly sick and twisted, but it really does. The film does a good job of showing the mindset of the people back during the 1860s that has clearly transitioned over to present day and kind of portraying the message of this film, the past never dies. And like Michaela was talking about that learned behavior, this child who is a new child in present day, who is going to be learning and seeing all of these things. and normalizing them, normalizing Black people being dehumanized in this way and Black people being killed and treated it this way. The way that the mindset of these people, and Jenna Malone's character, and then the man who plays her husband, his character, I thought he did a really good job of portraying this mindset of like, we are the descendants of God. We deserve, like, we're entitled to this land. We're entitled to treat you in this subhuman, horrible way just because. Like, that mindset is so hard for, you know, you and I to wrap our heads around, and hopefully most people to wrap our heads around. However, it was a mindset that existed in the majority of white people not that long ago. Obviously, Mikhail and I, as white women, don't carry that exact same mindset. However, that behavior and that mindset still lingers. Like, that doesn't just go away.
Especially people don't think about just how short of a time it has been since Martin Luther King Jr. has even been alive. Like, we're
Mhm.
gonna take it back just to that. Because slavery, there's obviously no one alive today. I don't believe so that when they are talking about this time is still around.
Mhm.
But our grandparents were alive when schools were still segregated. Like, there are still so many people in this country that are still alive who remember that. And that mindset is not that far removed from our generation. So if you're thinking about that, like, grandparent age level, parent, and us, like, that's only 2 degrees of separation. So, yes,
Right.
while I would hope to God no one is watching this film and being like, huh, like, I get what I'm picking up what they're putting down, you know, like Jenna Malone's character and like them.
Yeah.
I would hope that no one's thinking that. However, you do have to look at the fact that there really isn't so much time that has passed since a lot of these things have happened, and even in present day when we're looking at what's happening in our country right now every single day, that there is still so much that, as Katie said, is alive and still being passed down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the choice of them having a daughter, and then also the choice of Veronica having a daughter who look to be like the same age, is a really cool parallel to have in that
Right.
film.
Yeah, and it's so embedded in our system too. Like, law and bureaucracy, it's so time consuming, and it's meant to be that way so that things like kings and supreme rulers can't exist. Like, things take a lot of time to get put into place so that we can all agree on them, and that's what democracy is. However, that being the way that things are, very slow moving, a lot of our system is underdeveloped in the way that it addresses its racist tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're seeing it still, like Mikhail said this week, with the cops that murdered Breonna Taylor essentially getting off scot-free. We'll have links for that in the description box, obviously. Yeah, what you said about schools still being segregated, they were segregated when our parents were going to school. The first Black woman to go to school, that was in like 1965. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I guess some of our parents would have been
yeah.
alive. Mine wouldn't have been, but yeah.
Yeah, and like Emmett Till's murderers getting off scot free, that happened in the 19 around the same time, 1960s. And that time period, like the civil rights movement and everything, was just after like 100 years since slavery. So, and I think some people tend to view that as like, oh, that like the Black power movement has come so far, but it really hasn't. And I mean, in some ways it has, and in some ways it's still, like we said, has such a long way to go. And, you know, these men who killed Emmett Till getting off with no punishment, what do you think they taught their children who
Mm-hmm.
are still alive today? You know,
People still
like
have conservative flags, or
Confederate flags, yeah.
conservative flags, Confederate flags
Yeah.
flying. I mean, I have not seen any around our area. We do live in the Midwest, so I mean, while it still is pretty conservative up here, where Katie and I are located, it's much more blue, but down south, like, Confederate flags are everywhere still.
Yeah, even up north here too. Like, if you go out of Dane County, it gets a little yeehaw
I
to
was gonna say Madison and Milwaukee, both like very pretty blue, pretty liberal. You get outside of those two cities and it's yeah, pretty yeehaw, as Katie put
Yeah.
it. I like it. Yeehaw, that's a good way of putting
That's a nice way of putting it,
it.
I
Yeah.
will say. This mentality, this mindset is unfortunately still alive and well. And like Mikhail said, hopefully there aren't many white people who still think this extreme way. However, the KKK still exists.
Mm-hmm.
White supremacy is still alive and well. And while hopefully we would like to think that the majority of white people aren't like actively white supremacists in this horrible, gruesome way, that whole thing, the past is never dead, it still lives within us, and just our society's general ignoring of the atrocities of slavery. Like, Mikhail and I
Mm-hmm.
looked it up because we talk about the Holocaust all the time, like 6 million people were killed in the Holocaust and all this stuff. And we're watching this film and all these, again, confronting this horrible violence being committed by our country. And we're like, how many, like, this is literally no different than the Holocaust. Like, they're killing people and they're burning them in the shed.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many people died during slavery? And it was different because the Nazis kept track. They were very meticulous. I don't think the United States was doing that. However, we looked it up and it said like 600 million. And we don't talk about slavery nearly as much.
Was it 600? I thought it was 60.
I thought it was 600.
I mean, it very well could have been 600.
And the Atlantic slave trade was more than just America, so
Basically, regardless of the number is astronomically bigger than the
yeah.
Holocaust, but yet that is not drilled into all of our heads. And like, I'm thinking about curriculum, and even now the current conversation of how the current administration wants to change curriculum to be teaching like a different interpretation of our history, focusing on some different aspects. And we can't let that happen. We cannot let these horrible parts of our history be glossed over just for the fact that it makes our country look bad. Like, you have to teach that. You have to look at that and you have to acknowledge that, or else you're not going to learn from that at all. Like, if you are not seeing this right now, or seeing these films or anything, or learning about it, how would you ever know? How would you ever even try to be able to understand how our country got to be where it is today? Like, there are reasons that we are the way that we are now, and like our law enforcement and our government, like in our social justice, there are just reasons that our country has become what it has, and we have to look back at our history for that. And if we don't, if we just wipe that all away and be like, America has always been this fantastic place, like, that is just so blind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're so right. It was 60 million. You were right. 60 million African people were killed in the Atlantic slave trade, which again is like the Caribbean too is involved in that. But it's an uncomfortable thing to be confronted with and to grapple with and deal with, but we have to deal with it. It is so far past the time that white people in particular really need to sit with these atrocities and process them and take a good hard look in the mirror and be like, how am I still contributing to this? Am I contributing to this and the lingering effects of slavery and racism? What can I do to address this problem? Because like I said, it is our problem that we need to fix, that we should have fixed a long time ago.
Yeah. Like, I think a lot of people like to look at things happening, white people, I'm speaking about, and look at that and be like, well, that's not my problem. And it's like, no, you are not directly dealing with racism every day. Like, you do not have to deal with living in a you don't have to deal with racism constantly being like, white people have the privilege of not having to have racism in this country like directly impacting them the vast majority of the time. Like, you really don't. But it is your responsibility to be anti-racist. And I think that's something that I have recently, in the past, like, just couple of years, really learned about. Like, I didn't really know about the term anti-racist, and just learning what it means to be anti-racist, and that it's not enough to just not be racist.
Right.
Like, you have to be actively catching your biases and listening what other people are saying and correcting people when they're saying things that are offensive, even if that makes you uncomfortable. Like, you have to hold yourself and other people accountable. and that is white people's responsibilities. Like, it is not up to Black people to educate white people how to just not be racist.
Right.
That's not their job.
And part of like my sitting with this film and processing it was confronting how quick I was to detach myself from the traumatic and like painful first hour of the film and just immediately putting that 1860s. And I think part of it is because it's so violent and so horrible and upsetting to watch. So it's kind of like a defense thing, like, this doesn't happen anymore. This isn't the past. It's a horrible part of the past. And obviously, the film wants you to do that. It wants you to immediately be like 1860s America, not America now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we are presented with the twist and it's like, no, this is now. So how do you feel about that? And it's like, okay, well, it's a movie. But then, so what is the film trying to do? What is the film trying to say? Is it saying that this stuff happens right now? Not necessarily. However, it kind of makes you think, could something like this happen right now? And my answer was not immediately no. So I think right there is the kind of what the film is trying to do. I think Sharonda Williams did bring up a good point in her review, which again you should go watch and listen to that. But she said there's so much Black torture and so much violence and pain being inflicted on Black people in the first hour of this movie. And she felt that there was no purpose behind it. And it felt kind of like a spectacle to her because there was no call to action really at the end of the film. There was no really character development, she said, which she's right.
That's a good point.
And I'm not necessarily sure where I stand on that. I think the film definitely made me think about that and really internalize that question. Like, why were you so quick to obviously I struggled with the first hour of the film and was really upset by it, but I was so quick to like compartmentalize it, if that makes sense, as the past.
I did want to ask you that, which I kind of feel like is a good segue to get into this, is what do you think the point of this movie is? Because we talked about that with Us, we talked about that with Get Out, with a lot of these movies that are making commentary on social issues in our country today or prevalent themes in America. So, what do you think the point of this movie was? Or, like, what were they trying to say, I guess, with this?
Yeah, I feel like they were trying to say from the very beginning the past is never dead. And we don't talk about slavery and the Civil War enough as it is. So we're trying to repress it and not think about it. It's an interesting kind of like duality at play in this film with confronting the issue of people trying to ignore the past and erase the past and say that, like you were saying before, America's this great place with no issues and we've had like a little tiny issue here and there, but we're fixed. We fixed it now. It was a quick and easy fix. No harm, no foul. Black people, you can do whatever you want now. Like, you shouldn't be complaining. I think it's confronting that issue with the issue of like people literally trying to recreate the past with Civil War reenactments and slavery reenactments. You know, people who are like, my ancestors fought, and that's what this flag means to me. That's why I still fly it. So it's like people clinging to the past while simultaneously trying to erase it, like this racist mindset. It's like very contradictory towards one another, yet both are still very prevalent in society today. I think the film is, like I said, trying to say that the past is not dead and there, you know, whether we like it or not, this did happen. We don't talk about it enough, and we need to address how the effects of slavery and this intense white supremacy and racism are still like at play today in society.
I think to the point when you said about people like holding on to the past, how we talked about the Confederate flags, that people still fly that. And I think there are lots of little things dropped in the movie too that kind of show that people are still like holding on to the past. Like the Jefferson suite at the hotel that she was staying in, that Veronica's staying in. There is, when Veronica goes down to the concierge to make a reservation, the concierge woman like completely ignores her at first and answers the phone rather than help her, which first rule of like customer service, you always take care of the person in front of you, like the person on the phone can wait.
Mhm.
But she completely like kind of blew off Veronica and then was really just rude and nasty to her,
Mhm.
but then like greeted the people behind her very warmly who were white.
Mhm.
And behind her in the lobby, there was a painting that looked awfully a lot like a plantation.
Yeah.
And Katie and I talked about this. We're like, why do people still get married on plantations?
Mhm.
And like that they are still like everywhere in the South.
Yeah.
That why like clinging onto that, there were just a lot of little notes here and there that were kind of showing that while we tried to move past this and be like, oh, slavery was so long ago and I yeah, let's just like brush that under the rug, that there's still remnants of that you see in day-to-day life or that black people experience in day-to-day life
Mhm.
that show that we are not, yes, we are not at that level of owning slaves anymore, but we still have bits and pieces woven into our current 2020 state that we are in.
Yeah. And though we, again, going back to the mentality of the Southerners back then and like white supremacists and everything and slaveholders, how they felt so entitled to the wealth that they were receiving from the free labor that they were getting and everything, and they just rationalize that in their head somehow. Unfortunately, that still happens today. We reap the benefits of not necessarily slave labor, but prison labor, which is free labor. Many Americans reap the benefits of that. So it's like really not, this stuff still happens. It's not that long ago, for one thing. And
No.
it's, like I said, it takes a long time in the way our democracy and government and bureaucracy is set up to get rid of these things that are so embedded in our society.
And Katie, you brought up the review talking about how there was not a lot of character
Yeah,
development in this. That's something that I didn't really even think about until you brought that up. That yeah, how am I as such like a character focused person being like, what journey did Veronica really go through besides pain and suffering?
yeah.
Like her as a person, there really was not much. And there was a review that I read online that Angelica Bastine, I think I said that her last name right. I don't know. I'm sorry. That she wrote on Vulture. She is a black woman, and the title of it is "I am tired of films like Antebellum." And at first, when I saw that, without like reading it, I was like, huh, like that's just interesting because I feel like right now, like Us and Get Out were such like hot topic movies when they came out. So I was like, why? I was just interested to read, and right off the bat, she's like, I'm just tired of suffering. This is a direct quote. I am tired of suffering being the primary lens through which we understand black identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just, I was like, holy shit, yes.
Yeah,
When you think about all of the films that you think that have like the majority of a black cast, they are just showing pain and
yeah,
suffering for the black community. And when you think about all of, like the happily ever after movies, that's how white movies typically end,
yeah,
is like the happy ending and optimistic. Where when you're looking at films like Get Out, Us, and Antebellum, they don't necessarily leave you feeling positive about the future, you know? Like
right.
I totally get that. That while Katie and I can sit here and be like, these movies are fun to analyze
Mm-hmm.
and try to pick up on all the little signs dropped here and there, like that's fun for us to watch, but it's such a privilege for us to be able to watch these and be like, oh, these are cool to like analyze,
Right.
because we can't directly connect with the suffering that's happening on screen. And we have so many movies where we can see people that look like us have happy endings.
Yeah.
Where are the happy endings for the people of color?
Yeah, and I just did want to mention that Sharonda Williams is the one who like brought up the fact that Janelle Monáe's character doesn't have a character arc. I don't want to like steal that as an original thought of mine.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just didn't remember her name,
No,
but yes,
no
thank you for
worries.
pointing that out.
We're privileged in the way that we identify with the white people in this movie, even though they are the oppressors. If you're a black person watching this film, you have a black person to relate to in film, which is like part of the what we're striving for in the film industry, and what Michaela and I are advocates for is like more representation. But when that representation is black suffering, it like takes away from that movement that we're trying to strive for in the film and entertainment industry, I think. And yeah, she doesn't really change, or I mean, she changes, but she doesn't really have an arc. Like she escapes, and I guess there are like kidnap movies, like the victim, it's hard to have an arc for a victim in a kidnapping movie. You know, they kind of like,
Her arc would come in Antebellum 2
right.
of like how she goes after. So yeah, I don't necessarily think she has the room in the story to have much of an arc, but that is important to note then, like why are we not getting more
Yeah.
arcs than in other movies? Like okay, maybe this isn't the movie for that, but then why is there not simultaneously also other movies out right now that do show that arc and show like success and happiness and everyday life? I think that's why how we said we loved seeing Veronica's life
Yeah.
in present day. And yes, so you do see her being like a successful woman in America, married with a child, great home, great job, but that's not really the point of the movie,
Right.
is seeing that success.
Yeah, that's more to add to the shock value of the twist. Like you were saying before, we so enjoyed and we were so ready for that part of the movie to alleviate this like tense feeling that we were having when watching the violence and everything. It kind of taints that a little bit to be like it's going on at the exact same time.
Actually, you know what this just made me think of? Last week when we did our characters that deserved better, and you talked about Elio getting a not happy ending, obviously, at the end of Call Me By Your Name, and how there are not a lot of, or really any, like LGBTQ stories that end happy.
Mhm.
Again, why?
Mhm.
Why do they always have to end bad? Why do movies that have more color representation in them, why then are they about pain and suffering and again not really getting a happily ever after either? You know, like where is that?
And even like a film like Moonlight, which is an all black cast, that has a happy ending. However, the majority of the film is again pain and
Mhm.
suffering and sadness. And I think people are just ready for something different. And it's hard because being in these marginalized communities, there is a lot of like your reality is a lot of pain and suffering and trials and tribulations because of your identity and not necessarily
Mhm.
like a plot driven thing like your dog gets lost or something.
Yeah.
It's truly just the struggle that you're up against. The bad guy in the film is the you being mistreated for how you identify or how you were born. It's hard because you want to give authenticity to the experience. However, hopefully in society we're striving for the gay experience and the black experience to not be convoluted with all this pain and suffering, and
Mhm.
hopefully film will reflect that. Like it's just hard, and I don't want to speak for black people because you want to, like I said, be authentic and tell the real stories. We don't want to erase the history of slavery by not showing it and showing how it really was, but we also don't want to just see black people being murdered, raped, killed, beaten, shot. So it's
Yeah.
hard. It's like a tough balance.
Like they can exist at the same time. Like there can be movies like Antebellum, Us, Get Out, and even I'm thinking like 12 Years a Slave. Like again, why is it always like if there is going to be movies starring black actors that a lot of the times it's slaves? And I think Katie we even said something in this movie where like, do you think all of these actors are like seriously like I have to play a slave like again?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just so common that you see in Hollywood is a lot of these stories are about slavery, which on one hand, yes, we need to be talking about it, but also on the other hand, we need to have films that are also showing like positive representation for Black Americans, LGBTQ community members, other people of color. Like we need to have both existing and both conversations going, and right now I feel like it's pretty lopsided.
Yeah.
I do just want to talk. I don't know what other notes you have. This is kind of like my last big thing that I think I had necessarily was the bulldozed sign at the end. So at the end of the film, obviously when Veronica runs out on this horse and through this awesome montage, then we see it pans to this sign as she's running out and the cops are pulling up. It pans to this sign that is whatever the name is, Civil War Reenactment Field. It's basically a sign for this area that is showing, and that is the cover for this plantation that's hidden away. And at the end of the film, so you see that, and then you see a bulldozer come through and tear it down. And I just want to know, Katie, like, what do you think was the point in them showing that at the end? Like, does it make you feel optimistic? Does it make you feel like they're trying to, like, erase what has happened? How do you take that shot, or what do you think it
Yeah,
means?
I don't know, because then there were also like the FBI agents talking to the victims. There was like a small shot of that, and then the FBI like closing in on the plantation. I don't know. I kind of just felt like I didn't know how to feel at the end. I just felt kind of like, okay, a lot of like energy and intensity, and then it all kind of just fizzled out. I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from the sign being bulldozed. I think definitely like I would hope that that means that there are no more Civil War reenactments happening there. It's, you know, the site of a lot of people dying. So I don't think that it should be used for like a recreational purpose, so to speak, like that anymore because people were murdered there, obviously. And that's kind of what Michaela and I meant by like, why do people still have weddings on plantations? That to me is like having a wedding at a concentration camp. It just is gross. Like people have died there, so, and been murdered, like not just died, but anyways, I'm getting off track. I don't know. I didn't necessarily feel hopeful. I just kind of felt like,
Hmm.
yeah,
I think that I don't necessarily think it was an optimistic ending. I think that by knocking it down, it is like, okay, they're doing something about it and they're being proactive and being like, this is not going to take place here anymore. We are stopping this. However, we see the Robert E. Lee statue standing and then we never cut back to that.
true.
Like if you wanted to make a powerful message, or if they were trying to maybe be more optimistic, I would have liked to have seen a shot of them taking that statue down, but there
Yeah,
wasn't one because obviously these statues are still all over. So I think that was a choice to bulldoze that sign, but not to take down the statue.
that's a really good point that I didn't even think about. Or like a shot of them taking down the Confederate flag. I guess Veronica took it down, but
And then wrapped him up and burned him in it.
yeah, which was badass.
She is just such a badass.
She is.
What one thing, I'm sorry, this is gonna be like my only kind of like lighthearted moment here in this whole episode, but I just had to say, so when Veronica gets the phone to get her escape plan, Katie, I don't know about you, but I don't know how to send my location. That if I would were to be in that situation, I would not know how to drop my location.
Yeah,
Like I would just be screwed.
I know. I don't really know how to do that either. Yikes. We should both learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Just in case. But yeah, we were both really intense at that moment. We were like, "Run! Why are you not running?" and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It was just a classic like scary thriller movie moment where it's like, "Why aren't you running? Watch out behind you!" Like he's not dead.
Yeah.
I also hated that the guy that she was with died. I wish he didn't
I
die. And I
know.
wish that, like, again, this is something that Brandon Keith Avery mentioned, but share the same sentiment that I wish it would have been like a group revolution. Like, they all ran
Yeah.
out, they all got justice against their slave owners and everything.
Like, you know what would have been really cool? And granted that I think here, so this is how I would have liked that to happen, is that instead of just having the one main plantation owner dude that's a huge dick the whole time, rather than them taking Jet or no, so he has a horse and the general has a horse. So what I would have liked to have seen is Veronica get to kill the one head honcho in charge like she does and then take his horse. But I would have loved to have seen Veronica's friend get to kill Mustache Man,
Mm,
get his justice against him, because we have seen him this whole movie just belittle and berate and beat up her friend this whole time, and
yeah.
he's the one who killed his girlfriend, what we
Yeah.
can like assume is his girlfriend at the beginning of the movie. I would have loved to have seen for him to have his moment to kill him and then both of them have take each of their horses and run.
Yeah.
Like that would have been even more powerful to see both of them
Yeah.
on their horses and running away.
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
mean, still powerful the way that it was done with just Veronica, but I totally agree. I wish he would have lived as well. I should look up his name. What was his
Eli?
Eli? Okay. I think that would have been cool to have seen her and him both get to escape together. Or yeah, even like a group, like everyone joins in. Also, I just really hate the fact that Julia died. I mean, I I get it. I understand why they chose to have her die, but I just wish she wouldn't have had to.
It's just so messed up thinking about back to like everything that happened in the film with Julia's character, like how she was pregnant when she was brought to the plantation, which isn't back in the 1860s, it's present day. And this weird ass white supremacist dude who wants to be in a Civil War reenactment, like, wants to have his way with her. And, like, it's just so fucked. Like, it's so
Yeah.
weird.
And then when she has a miscarriage out in the field and Mustache Man is like, no, she can take care of herself, and then finally lets Veronica go with her. But then he's like, he calls after her and he's like, you better be on time tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like, Katie and I were talking about this. We're like, men just do not understand the female body, like, whatsoever.
No.
It's just.
Yeah. I saw a post today that was like, if you didn't bleed through all of your pants in 7th grade, you don't have a say in women's reproductive health. And I was like, absolutely.
That's so funny. See, I listening to that I'm Pregnant episode back and everything, I was like, ugh, I really hope that this is like the one episode that not a lot of people, like not a lot of my family members listen to. And then of course, like that was one that some of them listened to, and I'm just like, why'd you listen to that one? I mean, please start a conversation with me, but you're not changing my mind.
Right.
What were their 2 names again? I know you'll put them into the description box, but shout them out again. The 2 reviews.
Yeah, so Sharonda Williams on YouTube, she has a show called Pay or Wait, where she like breaks down films and tells you if you should like go see it, pay or wait for it to like come out on a streaming service. It's really an ingenious idea.
That's really clever.
Yeah, and then Brandon Keith Avery has a review channel, Just My Opinion. They both have episodes on their channels about Antebellum from a Black lens and perspective, which you all should go listen to, supplementing what you just heard on our podcast.
And then also, so the movie review that I had read that I noted in here was on Vulture's website, and it's called I'm Tired of Films Like Antebellum, and that's written by Angelica Jade Bastian. Again, I'm not sure that I'm saying that last name right, but if you look that up, you'll be able to find it as well. And just looking at her Twitter, she gives a lot of different reviews, writes a lot. And again, she is a Black woman, so she can speak on this through a Black lens. So yes, please go check those out. We'll have them linked below. Katie and I will make sure that we each link those. And then also we'll make sure in the description box, again, I'm going to put the voting registry website. Please, please, please make sure that if you are able to vote, that you do vote and that you're registered and that you either request your absentee ballot or and make a plan to vote. That is so, so, so important in this upcoming election, in all elections, but really in this upcoming election. Please make sure that you are doing so. You really have no excuse if you are like of legal age and are able to not to do it or to say that you forgot, because Instagram is sending reminders, Twitter is sending reminders. My Spotify even gave me a reminder when I logged on the other day.
That's wild.
Like, now we have reminded you. It's in the description. I got my absentee ballot already, so I already got that in and sent off. Katie, I know you were getting your Wisconsin license, so you can get going on that. So just please make sure you're doing that. Check that out. As Katie said, we will have I don't necessarily know what we'll link down below for Breonna Taylor, but we will find some sort of resources, something to put down in the description box as well. So please check that out. I know it's easy to feel so hopeless in the state of our country right now when constantly all you see is like bad news, and every time you look at our world it just gets like bleaker and bleaker, but there are things that you can do to make a difference.
And there's more people who think like you than you think, and there's so many young people who have the power to vote this year and to change things. And it may seem like we don't have enough time, or like it's past the time that these changes have been needed to be made, but there's a movement growing and we're gonna change things. I know we're gonna change things and get these old ass people who don't speak for us and don't care for us, who've just been sitting their asses on these seats in Congress and everything for years. We're gonna get them out of here because they don't represent the vast majority of us. So stay informed.
If you look, there have been lower points in history than the point that we are at now, and that we have been able to overcome, and we can do that now as well.
Yeah.
So yes, it gets hard. Take time. Make sure you are taking care of yourself, mentally recharging, giving yourself the space to make sure that you were taking care of yourself too.
Yeah. My absentee ballot is supposed to arrive today, so I'm super pumped about that. I'm gonna fill it out and hand deliver it to the place, so I make sure that my vote is counted, and I'm going to be jamming to music on the way to the polling place, and I cannot wait to vote. I just say that. I cannot wait to vote.
Yeah, my mom and I both requested absentee ballots, and we both just got ours. So she took and dropped ours off today. So I trusted it with her.
Cool.
That she would take care of it properly. But yeah, I don't know why that just made me think of it, but what's that one Miley Cyrus song, the Don't Fuck With My Freedom song?
Oh, yeah.
That is an absolute bop, and that's still always coming up on my repeat playlist.
Mother's Daughter.
Oh my god, speaking of that. Oh yes, thank you. Speaking of that, this is totally a side note, and you can do with this what you may. But I just have to say, this week was also a great week because on Wednesday, my favorite member of 5 Seconds of Summer announced that he was making his own solo album. They're not breaking up, because at first I was like, if that's what this is leading to, like, fuck me. But it's not. At least not now. He says it's not, but you also never know.
Yeah, true.
But he's releasing his own solo album next month, and I already have it pre-ordered. I'm so pumped. And he released his first song and music video, and it's all about like body dysmorphia and eating disorders and stuff, and like how society views that and like morphs our image of ourselves.
Yeah.
It was just so deep and beautiful and haunting, and it was a great time.
I'm gonna have to listen to that. That sounds really interesting. Also, Zendaya getting her Emmy Award.
Oh my god, how did we not talk about that, guys? Yes, Zendaya. How did we miss that, Katie? I think we were so like ready to jump into this movie that now this is like our little tangent portion just at the end of the podcast.
Sorry, guys.
Yes, Zendaya won the Emmy for Euphoria, which Katie and I, when those announcements came out, we were like, yes, bitch. We were just so excited that she got nominated. If you're fans of the pod, you know how big of a fan we are of Euphoria. So not only did Zendaya just deserve it because she's gave literally the best performance ever, but then also to be the youngest actress to win that award, to be a Black woman winning that award, it's just, we loved to see it.
Also, Miley Cyrus's cover of Heart of Glass is another thing that I'm just completely blown away by, and I cried when I first saw that. I hope she comes out with a rock album. I hope that her voice can take that like raw strain that she gave, because holy shit, that was the musical performance that I've like been waiting my entire life for.
Oh, okay.
I'll just end on that.
Okay, so there have been some highlights.
Yeah.
See, it's just about finding the small things to like be happy for, or like find a little bit of joy in. Yes, obviously that doesn't mean it covers all the dark, but there are just those little moments, guys, that you gotta watch out for.
Did you see that performance?
No, so that's why, okay, you gotta go look up Ashton Irwin, Skinny, and I will look up Miley Cyrus's performance.
Okay. We got our homework. We're also gonna figure out how to send our location so that we don't get kidnapped.
True. And figure out what we're doing next week. Oh no, because we have to rearrange. So guys, next week was supposed to be After We Collided, because After We Collided was supposed to be coming out. It has since been pushed back, and if it gets pushed back anymore, I might have a mental breakdown.
Michaela's so excited for this.
I am so excited for this movie. I can't wait to see it. I'm very, very excited. I'm just excited to go to a movie theater. I know it's bad. Katie and I are going to be very, very careful. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess, I don't know what we're doing next week, guys, but I guess tune back in.
We'll figure it out. We'll let you know. In the meantime, follow our TikTok, follow Michaela's TikTok, follow our YouTube channels.
Get me to 5,000 likes on my video. I'm very close.
All right.
Alrighty, everyone. Stay safe. Stay inside. Find something that makes you happy.
Yes. Lilas.
Lilas.